how to get my head on the background, or over the background. Well, I used to know this. Okay, I never really did it, but I wish my editor kind of left me a note of what to do here. This is a bit different for me. Come on, think! What do you... Oh, hey. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, folks and children, students and teachers. I don't know what I'm going to say. Hey y'all, Untitled here. No, that one's taken. Anyway, hey folks, welcome to the very first episode of Super Untitled Reviews. Since this is the first episode of the show, let me go over what all I'll be doing. Have you ever seen any Danny Tree Frog reviews, yet another review show, or Dang It Show video? Yeah, this will be like them, but slightly different in small ways. This will be the review show from now on. Well, maybe. It could change after like 10 or 20 episodes since Daniel can't make up his damn mind about what he wants to do with this channel. Keep his breath. Keep the breath. Anyway, with all that out of the way, let's take a look at Mortal Kombat 4. Why the fourth one? Well, it's due to this being the fourth review show on this channel, so I just went with that. Also, I just chose something random and the N64 was already plugged in, so, you know, whatever. Lovely title screen, and that always seemed to be the theme of these 3D Mortal Kombat games, is they always try to go for this creepy sounding music and atmosphere and all that. I don't know, I guess they were really trying to push that M rating, despite already being violent and bloody. Oh boy, these pre-rendered 3D models from the 90s, aren't they something? Of course, this is like Mortal Kombat 3, choose the tower that you want to do. Of course, I went with the easy one. Easy.
Round one, fight.
Okay, where to begin? I really want to tear into these 3D graphics, and I kind of can, but considering it's still in its infancy at this time, I don't know, I feel like they may have tried their best. In terms of the gameplay, it feels like Mortal Kombat for the most part. Maybe not quite as smooth, but, you know, if you want Mortal Kombat, this is Mortal Kombat. The first problem I have are the controls. They're not the worst thing ever, and I don't entirely blame the game for this, considering I am playing this on the N64. I mean, imagine trying to pull off a bunch of combos with a button layout like this. It's possible, but it just seems a lot easier on something like the PlayStation controller. But other than that, I do blame the game in some ways because, well, the controls don't always respond all the time. Obviously, this is not nearly the first game to do that, it's just still a problem. So altogether, I end up just punching and kicking and pulling off the special moves that I actually know when they respond. Oh, and here's a fatality for you.
Finish him. Scorpion wins. Fatality.
Yeah, and you thought that the fatalities in Mortal Kombat vs. DC was toned down. Okay, yeah, I am messing around. There are some pretty brutal fatalities, it's just that was the only one I was able to pull off, and of course it just happened to be the lamest one. Something else you can do in the game is pull out a weapon or pick up a weapon, which honestly is kinda cool, it adds a little more to it. Of course I lose pretty early on because it's a freaking early Mortal Kombat. I eventually turned down the difficulty because while I enjoy a challenge here and there, I do like to enjoy it and not just get frustrated with it. When a game is frustrating, it's no longer fun or enjoying, it's just frustrating, it makes me mad. It's not fun anymore. You know that people who think that like Dark Souls and all these other difficult games are the only way to go? You know what? You've been so abused, you think that the hard way is the best way. And you know what? It's not. This is a video game. This isn't real life. Wow. Had a lot to get out there. That was kind of mean, wasn't it? Anyway, turning down the difficulty made it a lot less frustrating, and I learned a little more about the combos. If I could stop running my words together. Now I've been playing through the arcade mode of this game, of course your typical fighting game stuff. And yes, every single character has their own ending. But I kept losing, and honestly I just didn't want to take a lot of time just to show an ending. So unfortunately I won't be showing it here, I'm just going to say look it up online. This version has real-time cutscenes, while the other versions like the PS1 and Dreamcast have pre-rendered cutscenes. Which one looks better? It's entirely up to you. Team mode is basically another fighting game standard thing, at least for some fighting games. You just choose the members of your team, and then if you can eliminate all the members of the other team, you win. There's a few different endurance modes, and you can probably take a guess of which one does what with the names. But basically, this is just kill as many opponents as you can and get the higher score. Basically, overall, this game's modes are basically what you find in a lot of other fighting games. That's not a problem, it just depends on how you pull it off. And also, like a lot of these older fighting games, if you wait long enough, you get to see what the story is, or what the opening cutscene is like.
Thousands of years ago, in a battle with the fallen elder god known as Shinnok, I was responsible for the death of an entire civilization. To rid all realms of Shinnok's menace, I waged a war that plunged the earth into centuries of darkness and banished Shinnok into a place called the Netherrealm.
It kind of feels like he's making his voice a little too deep, like the actor was just trying too hard to make his voice sound deeper. Now who exactly would try to do that? That's a little ridiculous. And that was Mortal Kombat 4 on N64. Overall, it definitely feels like the first fully 3D Mortal Kombat, and I gotta say, it's probably my least favorite of the main Mortal Kombat games, but overall, it's still pretty fun. Maybe not the best, but you can still get enjoyment out of it. I would have been done right here, but I decided to take a look at the Game Boy version as well. Surely it's not too much of a downgrade. Oh, what the f*** is this? The first Mortal Kombat game on Game Boy was pretty underwhelming as well, but at least it made a little more sense, considering the hardware at the time. But this is almost 1999 when this is released, on Game Boy Color. What is their excuse here? Yeah, this is definitely a collector's item game, and not really a, oh I'm gonna get it to definitely play it type of game, because even at the time this was crap. Suddenly MK4 on any non-Game Boy system doesn't seem so bad. Well, I don't know for sure if and when I'll start doing review scores, but for now, I won't be doing that. Hope all of you enjoyed the start of this totally different review show. Maybe one day I'll improve the scenery a little more, but for now, it's this. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe for more, and have a good day or night. Nothing's set in stone yet, but that's the finisher for now. See ya.
Here's the intro. Frogger, or as a lot of us know it as, Frogger He's Back, was a game released in 1997 for PlayStation and PC, and a couple of years later across other game systems. It's also a game that I've reviewed a couple of times, and it's just one in general that I'll probably never stop talking about. I'll be taking a look at the PlayStation version because that's the one I'm most familiar with. And I mean, I probably did put it in the title, so I'm, you know. I really love this intro. It's so charming and kind of shows off some of the stuff that I think Frogger probably should have been able to do in the game, but you know, it's fine. Oh, and here we have the leaderboard scoreboard. So let us get started with the retro levels. The retro levels of this game are set up like the original Frogger, just with a zoomed in camera and 3D graphics and quite a bit of changes. but for the most part it's set up like the original Frogger. It's generally an easy way to show off how the game's going to play, for the most part. The basic controls, at least. This game is set up differently from the older ones, and the fact that instead of guiding different frogs to their different homes, you actually have to save 5 different baby frogs per level. Each frog has different colors: green, orange, purple, blue, and red. Who says Frogger doesn't have diversity? The retro levels are also like the original Frogger, and the fact that each level is basically the same level, just slightly harder, and, well, in this case, for some reason the water is slightly darker blue. Level 5 is the last of the retro levels, and, well, other than being the hardest one, there's also a little surprise here. That's right, a golden frog. I'll talk more about those in a bit. Another thing you can do in the game is change the camera angle, which, well, means you change the camera angle. It really doesn't have that much use in the retro levels, but it does work out later on. Moving on from the retro levels, let's take a look at the, well, I guess the lily pad levels. Wow, the loading screens really aren't that long. I mean, I know the game is loading up just, well, the graphics are kind of the basic concept of polygons, but you get what I'm saying, it's not that long. As you can tell, the lily pad levels are a lot different from the retro levels, and this is how the whole game is going to be. It's different from the retro levels. Definitely more variety and encourages more exploration. I wonder what will happen if I go up here and like jump down this hill. I bet it'll like roll off or something. It'll be pretty funny. Let's see here, oh, here we go. Oh shoot, it killed me. You get introduced to new power-ups in the form of flies, like this auto hop here. You also have these types of flies, the rainbowy ones that give you 1-ups. I mean, I'm already full on that, but you get the idea. For some reason, you can only have a maximum of 11 extra lives. I guess this is just to add challenge, but trust me, whenever we get to the later levels, you're gonna wish there was more. Another thing that's different from the retro levels is the fact that the next level is completely different in design. This is actually how it is throughout the rest of the game. Very different levels that will definitely take a lot of trial and error if you don't know these levels. And let me just go ahead and say, if you don't know the lawnmower level very well, then it is going to be complete hell for you. For some, it might get a little satisfying once you know the timing of all the jumps, but for others, it might feel like something they really don't want to do anymore. Now, some later levels in different worlds will have very similar structures to the first level, just with some slight differences. In the case of the last lily pad level, it's like the second level, only a lot harder, and with this little added section, which can make it slightly easier for this level. Now let's move on to the leaf levels, because I guess I just feel like showing you every world. I decided to go exploring a little more, other than just looking for the frogs, but really all it does is get you potentially more points. This level is actually pretty easy once you figure it out. I mean, it can be a little intimidating at first with all the hellstorm of bees, but if you're quick enough, it's really not that bad. Now, you may have noticed whenever you start a level or whenever you die and you spawn back to the beginning, it kind of shows Frogger's face and then it turns for you to go forward or sideways. Well, for some weird reason, Canopy Capers is the only one where it's the opposite. It doesn't really change many things, it's just kind of weird. One thing that's also a little bit strange about the leaf levels is the fact that happened, but also the fact that this only has 2 levels. Most of the worlds have about 3 to 5, but this one's different. Now we're off to the Metal Gear levels. Heh. These levels introduce kind of a puzzle element where you have to turn on these switches to move these platforms, or turn them off depending on what you want to do. The levels at first kind of look like they're hard, but honestly once you get to know them, they're pretty easy. Well, now this one's a little more harder. But again, it's really not that hard. What are you, suicidal, Frogger? You just have to be careful with your jumps, because sometimes you can go so fast that you can jump over the stupid frog. Alright, I'll go ahead and address the elephant in the room, and by that I mean the cheat I'm using. You may have noticed that I've been losing some lives and not really losing any lives. That's because I put in a cheat code that gives me infinite lives, something I didn't realize was a thing until over 20 years later. That could have saved me a few headaches, but you know, it made me a little stronger. The green frog in this level definitely takes a long time to figure out how to get, but once you figure it out, it's pretty satisfying. Now on to the bat/cave levels. Oh, by the way, this is something you unlock with the gold frog. I probably should have mentioned that earlier. Now this level utilizes the, you know what, the lighting in the background is kind of distracting. Let me change that. Now this level utilizes the lighting and well, mostly the darkness, so you really have to know the level to get through it, and eat these little light flies. It's really not hard at all, it's just the darkness that makes it a little bit, harder. Frogger goes skiing, on the other hand. Oh boy. You're given plenty of light at the start, but then it just gets dimmer. Not as dim as the previous level, but the fact that you're skating and constantly going really makes it harder. You also get to check out Frogger's teeth in this level, which is, that's pretty nice. I also find it kind of slightly funny the way Frogger looks when he dies on the ice. Now Webb's Cavern, it's not too bad. I mean, look at all that light there. Surely it won't get too dark. Come on, you knew the opposite was going to happen. Something I've been neglecting to mention is the fact that you can croak to hear where the other frogs are, kind of in the surrounding area. This is what the gold frog sounds like. And these are what the regular baby frogs sound like. Wonder what the seizure one is doing. Whoa. Okay, that's good. Now we move on to the cloud levels. These will be so relaxing with loony balloons. Yes, just peace, tranquility, and so much damn noise from the birds. Seriously though, these levels can be really hard at times, and, well, you gotta have a lot of patience, while also being really quick with the timer. This level also shows off that not everything that's supposed to work works. This isn't really a great example right here, but you get what I'm saying. Now this level, if you don't know what to do here, you are not going to be getting any frogs. Alright, speeding through, we're getting through this. Let's go low. Crap. What you have to do is pop this balloon and ride the What you're supposed to do is pop this balloon and then ride these birds. Now at first it looks like they're just going around in circles, but then eventually you find out that they're getting closer and closer to the clouds below that have the frogs. It's an interesting idea, but it gets old really fast and just kind of wastes time. The next level is basically the same as the first level, except it's more of a sunset look and obviously it's harder. Now this level uses both the ice physics and the planes, I guess. Yeah, instead of birds, you have planes and helicopters. Oh shoot. It's challenging, but honestly kind of fun. In some areas. But don't worry, there are still birds here that just try to kill you. So now that we're done with the beautiful skies, why don't we take a look into the sewers. The levels definitely get harder from here, but if you know this level, then it's not too bad. You just have to make it past these barrels and then make it to the other side and try to find the frogs from there. In case you're worried about time, well, there's plenty of time flies around. Now the next level is definitely different. While not quite like the cave ice level, it's definitely a place where you can't really sit still a lot. Well, I mean, you can't do that anyway due to the timer, but you get what I'm saying. Just a good old classic nasty ass place. This level right here can make me pretty cranky. This is definitely one of the hardest levels in the game. Not the hardest, but it does have moments where you want to pull your hair out. The next level is just a harder version of the first level, and it always seems like the third or fourth level is like that. To be honest, this one might be harder than the previous level. Well, honestly, it's just harder in a different way. Now this level, ooh, dear Lord God in heaven, it's quite a bit harder. But if you can reach this spot, it's definitely got a fun moment like this. Although, this still isn't really the hardest level, if you can believe that. Now we're getting really close to the last world, but first we're going to go through the desert world. These buffaloes are essentially the cars, except they have hardly any pattern, and it's really hard to tell what that pattern is if there is a pattern. How many times can I say pattern? Yeah, this is definitely the hardest set of levels in the game. So if you wanted this game to be any harder than it already was, well, play these levels. Especially this one. You ever wanted to have a nightmare and have your hair torn out and having to go to therapy and everything? Well, here you go. This is a level for you. These stupid freaking beetles. They can just go right to hell back where they came from.
The other parts are hard too, but it's because of the beetles that waste your time, and so you have to be even quicker. You're more on edge whenever you get to these parts. So yeah, this is one of the most frustratingly hard levels in the game, but believe it or not, this is still not the hardest one in the game. This level is still challenging, but it's probably the easiest level in the set of desert levels. And of course, the fourth level is just a harder version of the first level, but luckily here's where the gold frog is. Why do I say luckily for this level? Well, it's because of what the next level is. That's right, it's the hardest level in the game, and of course, it is a harder version of the second level. Out of the entirety of the currently 23 years this game has been around, I have only beaten this level once, and it was not here. Even with cheats, this level is near impossible. Here's where you can leave your initials for the scoreboard. But hey, look at that. I reached the top of the scoreboard. Oh, and this is back when this was going to be a Dane Tree Frog episode. And finally, we have Tropical Trouble, the last world/level in the game. Yeah, there's only one level. While this level ain't exactly a cakewalk, it's actually one of the easiest levels in the game. Once you know it, of course. Maybe they just wanted to give you a relaxing time after the previous level, which is, well, let's just not even talk about it. Well, that was the final frog. Now we've beaten the game. So I guess now we'll, what now? That's right, there's still a little bit more to do in this level. The timer even stopped, so it just kind of lets you explore around before you do it. Which is what I did. I just decided to also turn on infinite lives and explore around and see what the level has to offer. But once I was done with that, I decided to go into this frog temple thing. And you know all those gold frogs I've been collecting? That's right, they all appear here, and once you get them all, this happens. Just wanted to get creative with speeding it up. You know, I really don't care if that's the third time I've shown that in terms of a review show. It's just so beautiful. Anyway, now we're letting the credits roll, showing off early versions of these levels, early and unfinished. It's interesting. Well, that was Frogger He's Back on PlayStation. It's not the most polished game out there, and it's not exactly everyone's cup of tea, but I still really enjoy it. Nostalgia probably has a hand in that, but I think that some people would give it, if they gave it more of a chance, they would enjoy it. Somewhat. Maybe, I don't know. Bottom line is, I really like this game. Well, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed, and I don't know if I'm going to change the way the backgrounds are. I just kind of slapped this stuff together for this new review show. This 5th new review show. As of this recording, it's new, obviously. So anyway, I don't know if I'm going to change stuff, but we shall see what we shall see. Apparently my grandma used to say that. Anyway, thanks for watching.
Here's the intro. Doom is a game that's been released on everything that can be remotely considered a computer. But it was originally released in December of 1993 for MS-DOS. Well, today we're taking a look at the Super Nintendo version, which was released in September of 1995. This version of the game was one of the cool kids on the Super Nintendo who had a different colored cartridge. Well, that was scary. Think of the time it was released. Well, if you ever wanted to play fast slideshow Doom, then here you go. Oh yeah, I can technically start over the game if I wanted to. The music is fine, but the gameplay itself is less than desirable. The frame rate is really choppy, the controls are a little awkward, and look at these green lines going down the screen. Oh wait, that was my Super Nintendo's video output. It wasn't exactly the cleanest. But the other two problems still remain. So as you can imagine, this isn't really going to be a review of Doom itself, but rather just the SNES version. It may look like I'm controlling it weird, but that's because I'm using a Super Nintendo controller. I'm not exactly expecting top quality performance or anything by the Super Nintendo controller, but I expected a little bit better. Same thing goes for the frame rate. I feel like it could have been a little bit better, but honestly, maybe this was just the best they could do for the Super Nintendo, even with the Super FX chip. Well, maybe I'm being a little too harsh on this version of Doom, considering I'm more used to the more modern controls like the Switch version of Doom. But I feel like even for the time, this was a little less than desirable. You know, people always ask about any kind of computer, can it run Doom? But no one really takes the time to ask, should it run Doom? And to answer those questions, with the first one being, you're half right when you say yes, but if this is the best we're going to get, then the follow-up question is, probably shouldn't. I'm probably pissing off a lot of people who are a fan of this version of the game, but let's be real here. Compared to other versions, even for the time, this is a pretty low-performing version. Now, if this was your only option at the time, or for some reason today it's your only option, then it's doable. But compared to the other versions, like if you just want to play Doom in general, and you have more modern consoles or computers, there's definitely better options out there. Now obviously there are much worse games on the SNES, but in saying that, this is still one of my least favorite versions of Doom. Now I haven't played them all, and I don't plan to play them all, but out of the ones I have played, this is probably my least favorite. But at the end of the day, as harsh as I was with this version, it's honestly not bad. It's just when you compare it to the other versions, it looks worse. Thanks for watching, everyone. I know this one was definitely shorter compared to the previous video, but that's because I was more so talking about the version of the game rather than much of the game itself. But in any case, I hope you still enjoyed, and like if you like this video, and then subscribe if you want to see more, whether like this or longer ones like the previous video, and thanks for watching. Here's the intro. Flatout was a game that was released on Xbox, PS2, and PC back in July of 2005. Well, in North America at least. In other parts of the world it came out in various dates, but that doesn't really matter, does it? This is another game that I've talked about in the past, but only once before, and this time I'm looking at the Xbox version rather than the PS2 version, so it's a major difference, I guess. I played this on my 360, so you didn't get the cool intro. Haha, good. We gotta deal with copyright stuff. So girls just want Flatout. Well, I mean, you know, it's cool. Well, why don't we just go ahead and start our career in this nonsense, huh? Come on now, we all know how career mode works in these mostly multiplayer focused games. They just kind of give you something to do when you don't have your friends over, or don't have any friends at all. Well, let's just start ourselves a good old race. You think we could be any closer, fellas? This is one of those kind of more realistic racers, but it doesn't really feel that realistic. And by that I mean there's not a lot of moments where you're just like, what am I doing wrong? Don't get me wrong, you do have those confusing moments where you're just like, I thought I was doing this, but it's doing this. You know, perhaps I should do a little more clarification of what I'm talking about. If you've ever played the Gran Turismo or the Forza series, you should know what I'm talking about when it comes to realistic racers. Something that sets it apart from some of the realistic racers is stuff like this, where you have ramps and other obstacles that get in the way. I'm not saying no other realistic racers have stuff. Alright, so that's another thing that really sets us apart. If you hit something at a certain speed or in a certain way, then your character can go flying out of their vehicle, basically becoming a ragdoll. It's very entertaining. I probably should show a clip of it. That feature is really utilized in mini games like this. Torture is fun. Really though, this is some pretty entertaining stuff. This is some pretty entertaining stuff. I really need to not run my S sounds together. One thing you can do in career mode is earn cash to upgrade your vehicle. It's kinda nice and adds a little strategy. I think this is considered strategy. Another thing you can do with the cash is buy more vehicles. I didn't have the patience to really do that, but you can do that. Let's take a look at some of the other modes, shall we? Of course, you have your standard quick race, like in a lot of these games, where you can just play the maps that you've unlocked. Tracks. They're called tracks in racing games. And of course, you can also use the vehicles you have unlocked in the game. Now, a really handy feature this game has is if you hit a wall or something and you have to reset your position, you can do that. It kind of sets you back a bit, but it can save some annoyances. Now, another interesting way they have this game sort of realistic is the fact that your vehicle can get really messed up depending on where you hit it at. It actually doesn't affect your driving all that much, but it's still an interesting detail. Yeah, that's kind of why the position reset feature is handy. Of course, this will be a little more fun with more people, considering this is a multiplayer game, but again, I didn't have any for this recording, so cue the music again. But that doesn't mean you can't have any fun without your friends around, so why don't we check out some more of those minigames? These are definitely the best features of the Flat Out series. They're just so absurd. Another mode this game has is Demolition Derby mode, where, well, it's like how it sounds. You just ram into other cars and try not to get killed yourself. If you want to really see how damaged your car can get, this is definitely the best mode for that. If any of you decide to play this game, let me know what it's like whenever you win one of these, because I sure as hell don't know what that's like. Now, if you ever find yourself playing this game and you're like, man, I really wish I could unlock those extra features a lot faster for my friends whenever they come over, or I just want to see what all this game has to offer, well, you probably know where I'm going with this. Microtransactions! Don't forget to keep spending an absurd amount of money to maybe get what you're looking for. I'm just kidding, you silly bastard. You put in a freaking cheat code. No, I'm not really sure why I said it like that, but basically you put in the cheat code in the name menu whenever you start a new profile, and then you can just name it whatever afterwards, and hey, you have everything. All the vehicles, all the tracks, all the mini games, just whatever you need, it's all here, within limits. I just took all this opportunity to play all the mini games where you just abuse the hell out of your character. So yeah, this game has a lot to it. A lot of fun can be had here. I wouldn't call it hours and hours of fun, but it's still pretty fun with friends or somewhat by yourself. So if you have an original Xbox, a 360, a PS2, or a computer that can run this game, I would recommend it. It's actually pretty cheap these days. Now, I wouldn't call this the best in the Flat Out series, but it is a pretty fun time. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. Be sure to hit that like button if you like this video, and then do the subscribe if you want to see more like this. And thanks for watching. I don't know how to end these yet, so of course I'll figure it out. Here's the intro. Marble Madness was a game released in arcades in December of 1984, during the crash of 1983. It's been ported to many other game systems, but today we'll be taking a look at the NES version. Why the NES version? I don't know, it's just the one I recorded. Milton Bradley presents Marble Madness. I really thought it was Midway, but I guess I'm wrong. No, a bunch of these ports had a bunch of different companies port them. Hey, you can choose between one or two players. What do you think I'm going with? I'm sure there's some sort of difference between these two options, but I never really felt it. Now, the arcade version of this game had a trackball. What do you do with this game? Well, of course you use the D-pad. And it works out beautifully. Yeah, using a D-pad for an isometric game like this, it doesn't always work out too well. You can get used to it, but, it just doesn't feel right. Now, the second level of the game I see as the official start of the game, probably because it's not a practice, but also because it really shows off how challenging this game is going to be. It's obviously not the hardest level in the game, far from it, but it's not exactly a cakewalk either. And of course, this is one of those games where it has a long drawn-out death animation, but the timer keeps going. You got these weird enemies, like these weird green, slinky alien things. I think that these enemies can speak for themselves. Like these freaking bottomless pits! Yeah, that's about right. Game over. Game over. Maybe you shouldn't have so many freaking bottomless pits! It's okay, Sylvester. Alright, let's just get back to where we were at. I think I'm gonna take a different turn here. Yeah, you're doing all well and good. Nice job getting through the level, except then you have this little part right here where you're trying to dodge this little gap here, and then you're also trying to dodge this hole here. Okay, I usually have problems with it, but I didn't that time. I really can't fault the game for that. Now you can actually change the speed of the ball. Press one button to speed it up and one button to slow it down. It's simple, but kind of effective. I have to say, judging from the way this game is, life as a marble is kind of a living hell. One moment you're having fun just rolling around like it's nobody's business, and then suddenly you're rolling too fast and you're rolling the wrong things and it just gets too hard. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. And I don't know if anyone's really been able to figure this out, but randomly you'll get extra time by some magic wand. Well, miracles are unexplained and unexpected. Well, anyway, I ran out of time in the fourth level, so I don't know, I'm done with this. I honestly don't know how I feel about this game. I like coming back to it and I have a little bit of fun with it, but it's also really frustrating and hard, and I can't hardly get past, the fourth level. There's not that many levels in the game. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this game. It's alright. Well, thanks for watching this video, ladies and gentlemen. It was a bit of a shorter one, again, but it's because it's an NES port of an arcade game, so you can't really expect that much. But in any case, like this video if you like it, and then subscribe if you want to see more of this nonsense. And thanks for watching. Here's the intro. Family Guy the video game was released in 2006 for Xbox, PS2, and PSP. The game is obviously based on the TV show, which was still really funny at the time of this game's release. An adult cartoon that has lots of sex humor, lots of toilet humor, and lots of political humor based on information that is mostly either greatly exaggerated or straight up false information, so they probably got a lot of their info from the mainstream media. Anyway, today I'll be taking a look at the Xbox version of the game. Fun fact before I get started, this game was originally going to have a T rating, but due to what's in the final game, the ESRB apparently felt that an M rating was more fitting. Oh wait, since this is a Fox property, am I going to have this video taken down? Am I going to be one of the lucky ones who's able to keep this video up and even put an ad on it? Or am I going to be like a lot of the others, where it just gets straight up taken down? Huh, wonder what's in the special features. Oh. Well, let's go ahead and see what the game is like.
Still out here, huh?
I have a responsibility to my PTV viewers, Brian. And nothing says must-see TV like a 5-day, non-stop Mr. Belvedere marathon.
Gotta say, I never really cared for that show. Put out kind of a weird vibe.
Shh. I think this is the one where Mr. Belvedere sits on his own nuts.
And there's the weird vibe.
Alright, the show's humor is kind of there.
This is a day to remember, Rupert.
So, because we're playing Family Guy, we must be using Peter, right? I mean, that's who we start out with, right? Nope, it's Stewie.
Oh, marvelous. I see you stopped touching yourself long enough to learn how to play this thing. Well, let's get on with it.
They do at the very least start you off in a room where you can really practice all your moves that you have as Stewie. Man, there's already secrets they want you to find in this game. It is pretty interesting the way they tried to set up the house in 3D. I mean, I don't know if it's exactly set up like this. I think some things are a bit exaggerated for video game's sake, but it's still pretty cool. Oh, no wait, that wasn't a secret. I just had to get enough things to go through the door. Well, this part's kind of interesting. It looks like Stewie can mind control Lois through her ass. Here you can find a couple of Easter eggs through these doors. I'm kind of trying to figure out how this is considered like a poor house or lower middle class when this looks more like upper middle class, but whatever. At this point, you're probably wondering what exactly Stewie's gameplay is supposed to be. Well, I'll go ahead and show you. Stewie's gameplay is a third-person shooter with a fixed camera and some platforming. This is probably why the game has an M rating. You kill a bunch of children. The game control's alright. I mean, it's got a little bit of a problem with the fixed camera angle perspective, but it's fine enough.
Good thing my bribes at City Hall paid off.
Oh, so this is where the cutaway minigames happen. They just kind of happen at random to help you out through the game. They're alright. They're not all that great, but they don't take up a lot of your time. I gotta say, while Stewie's gameplay is alright, you do start to notice early on that it's a little bit repetitive. But even with that said, you will realize by comparison it's probably the most polished gameplay in the game. Also, there's a room where you jump on pregnant women to get babies out, and also the collectibles.
Why am I bothering? Nothing interesting has come out of there in 6 years.
There's also a room where you do this. I don't know if they could do that in a T-rated game. Alright, that's enough of Stewie's gameplay for now. Let's move on to another character. And the next character will be Peter, right?
Huh. Hidden pornographic scene viewable by pressing up, up, down, down, left. Huh. Horny gamers believe anything.
Nah, the next gameplay is with Brian. And honestly, I wouldn't really mind that if it wasn't for the fact that this is the worst gameplay in the game. The gameplay I'm gonna have to age restrict this, aren't I? Brian's whole gameplay style is stealth. And not the kind where it's just easier if it's stealthy. No, it's the kind where you have to start over from the last checkpoint every single time if you get caught. So this is a third of the entire game, a crappy stealth game.
I see you.
This is even more disappointing than that time I watched the second SpongeBob movie. Now this is gonna be great. The gameplay already drags enough, and this makes it even slower. And I really hope that Peter's gameplay will be a lot better. Speaking of...
Lois? Lois? Oh, what the hell happened? All I remember is Mr. Belvedere was there, and I remember something whacking me in the head.
There was another Stewie level before this, but I decided to skip showing it in favor of actually getting to the Family Guy himself, Peter Griffin. And his gameplay is beat 'em up. Honestly, that's not a bad idea. It kinda matches Peter's character in a way, although the final product, I kinda wish it was a little faster and a little better and more polished than how it turned out. What I'm saying is, it's okay. So you can get an instant death by hitting this show's vision of God, and it kinda makes me confused about what their beliefs are.
Damn these mimes and their invisible walls.
Alright, that's pretty clever. So the gameplay is fine enough, but then you get all these enemies just killing you left and right. Like, they put in way too many at once. Also, prepare to hear the same lines over and over, because this game has that problem. This gameplay style also has that problem that most beat 'em up and fighting games have, where you try to pull off a specific combo and it seems like you're doing the exact thing they want you to do, and it's not counting. So yeah, Peter's gameplay overall is better than Brian's, but not quite up there with Stewie's. And even Stewie's is not all that great anyway.
This reminds me of that time I tried to open that can of tuna.
Overall, this game is just very mediocre. I mean, it had potential of being great, and Stewie's gameplay was in the right direction, but the game overall is even more of a snail's pace than that cutaway I set up just to pad out the time. I'm not actually going to do that. Although, you know, I could. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend this game. I mean, if you're morbidly curious, you could probably give it a shot if it's really cheap, but I would more so look at this as a Family Guy collector's item. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. Hopefully you're watching this under normal means, to where it's still on YouTube and not taken down by Fox. I've had a problem like that in the past, but maybe the video game's copyright stuff won't be as bad as the shows. But in any case, like this video if you like it, and subscribe if you want to see more. And again, thanks for watching. Here's the intro. Rushdown was a game released in 2000 for PlayStation. This game was made by good old Electronic Arts. You know, the best video game company of all time that really cares about their games and not just the money they make from them. So how does this game hold up today? Well, let's take a look. Okay, that was kind of cool. And of course we got our usual showing real life shots and showing some in-game shot, well not in-game but pre-rendered, but you know what I mean. And of course with games like this, half the time this is usually the best part of the game, is the way they make it look. Also, I have no idea if this music will be copyright struck or not. I didn't really do research if this is like a song by a big company or if this is just for the game. I guess we'll see. The menu music is really giving me some Rocket Power Team Rocket Rescue vibes. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and start with arcade mode. Yeah, you know EA made this. Them or Bethesda. What is even happening here? Is this because I'm not playing it on original hardware? Not a lot of other games do this. I mean, maybe it does work on the original hardware, but it sure as hell doesn't work here. I mean, I suppose it's possible it could be my disc, but I doubt that. The loading times are about what you'd expect. They just decide to give you 2 loading screens. That's all kinds of good. I'm just going to start off with snowboarding. Apparently we're in Africa. I'm just not used to seeing snow in Africa. You can change the view of your character if you want to go first person or stay with third person, as these games usually do. The gameplay is a downhill racing game, whether you're racing against the clock or racing against an opponent. The controls are... they're bad. I'll just cut to the chase, they're bad. I don't know if I can really even describe the controls. They were probably trying to go for more realistic, but it just really doesn't work here. I didn't even really finish the race. I couldn't take it anymore. It's just really bad because everything wants to knock you over. And the timer ran out. So let's try kayaking now. Maybe this is better. It's somewhat better than snowboarding. It's really not all that exciting, but it's better. Okay, now that was a little set. It is kind of cool to go in first-person view when kayaking, because the way the water looks and the environment, I mean, yeah, it's very low detail, but it's still something about it. I mean, this is an E-rated game. I guess a blood splatter of someone crashing into a rock or something would probably not go well. And hey, what do you know? I actually won the race this time, because this one wasn't as stupid. You do go to different parts of the world whenever you go to another level, but they look kinda samey, at least in the case of the kayaking. Well, it's somewhat different in America, where it's taking place at night. And finally, we have mountain biking. Yes, there's only 3 sports here, but I guess that's fine. The mountain biking gameplay is kinda eh. I kinda ran into some of the same problems I have with the snowboarding gameplay. Just so many problems in the way and very weird controls. And like the other 2, you can wreck in a weird way. I noticed a lot of the music in the game was very samey. Like, I couldn't really tell a difference between a lot of these tracks. Well, eventually I decided to use cheats to see what the rest of the game was like, because I didn't want to go through all that time of just unlocking all the levels. But hey, when I got to Tokyo, at least in the snowboarding case, it was actually really different looking, because there's actually a city instead of just mountains. My biggest problem with this game is, overall, besides the problems with the controls and stuff, is that this game is just boring overall. The kayaking gameplay is probably the most exciting out of all of them, but even then, it's not all that exciting. How is it that these game companies manage to make these extreme sports boring overall? Like seriously, snowboarding, kayaking, and biking should be really fun, but not in this game. So yeah, I'd definitely give this one a pass. It's not even one of those games that's so bad it's good. It's just so bad and boring. There's not much content to it, and the gameplay is just, it's not good. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. I know this probably wasn't the most exciting review, but also I didn't play the most exciting game, so there's that. But in any case, hit that like thing if you still like this video, and hit the subscribe thing if you want to see more of these. And once again, thanks for watching. Here's the intro. Whoa, we're about to get out of control here because today we're going to be taking a look at random Game Boy versions of console games. Now to clarify, I'm only looking at original Game Boy games, as in the ones that came in gray cartridges. I won't be looking at Game Boy Color games because apparently there's people that like to keep those game systems separate, even though the Game Boy Color is basically just a slightly upgraded Game Boy. But also, this video would be a lot longer if I also included Game Boy Color games, so I'm just going to stick to original gray cartridge Game Boy games. So let's get started. First up is Battletoads. Now I've already reviewed this game separately as Danny Treefrog Reviews, so let me just say, watch that video for me to kind of explain the situation of this game, because this is technically not a portable version of the console game, but it is at the same time because of the box art and the name. It's really confusing, but I'm just going to count it in this anyway. Well, this is a one-player only experience, so we'll just go with showing one Toad. Don't be shy, come into the dark where I can see. Stranger danger, I need an adult. Oh, okay, well, she's upfront about it. So in this game, you just play as Zitz, and if you're wondering who that is, in case you don't know the Toads, well, that's the one on the cover. Well, the biggest one on the cover. Even though this is considered a different game, it feels like Battletoads. Sure, it's gonna feel a little different considering you're playing it on a Game Boy, so the characters look a little bigger, but it still feels like Battletoads, like you're not gonna feel that much of a difference. But the differences that are there, I actually prefer them over the NES version. Now when I say different, I mean like somewhat in the physics and the level design. And, well, obviously this wouldn't normally be the second level in the NES version. This is a very different game, isn't it? But I'm not really sure why, I just prefer this version of the game. Well, honestly, nostalgia probably has a hand in that. See, I first played this game back in 6th grade, so I was still a kid back then. Also, this is my very first Battletoads game, so those together might be why I prefer this one over the others. It might also have to do with the fact that this is a little easier than the NES game. A little easier. So if you find this game for a decent price and you have something that can play it, I'd say give this one a go. Alright, next up we have the Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle. I'm just going to be calling it Crazy Castle because that's what most of the series is called. Now this one doesn't have any kind of confusing background. It has the same name as the NES version because it is the same game, just on Game Boy. This is a puzzle game in which you have to collect all the carrots and avoid enemies. For an early 90s Game Boy game, it's pretty decent. I mean, it's nothing spectacular, and it does get a little repetitive after a while, but it's a good little distraction for a car ride or something. This one obviously has a lot less color to it than the NES version, though somehow they got Sylvester's color right. And I think some of the level design is a bit different from the NES version, but that could be due to that could have been due to the limitations of the Game Boy. It's nothing spectacular, but if you want to give it a try, it's pretty cheap these days. And the last game on our list today is Pack-In Time. And for those of you who didn't know that this was a thing, well, it was also a thing that released on Super Nintendo and DOS. This is also a thing that would make you look at the villain and say, this is from a Pac-Man game? Good title screen music. I guess we're just gonna have a moment of silence for this. Also, this goes on for quite a while because there's a lot of story here, I guess. I guess they just couldn't tell it through cutscenes, could they? Okay, now we have music, I think. Pac-Man, you doing alright? You got a bad case of the sunburn there, don't you? Well, the physics are a bit weird in this game. I mean, I guess having a ball character is gonna do that. Honestly, for a Game Boy game in 1994, this is a little bit advanced. I don't mean in terms of graphics or anything, but just what all you can do. Like, in some ways, this feels like a very early side-scrolling Pac-Man world. This obviously wasn't the very first Pac-Man platformer, but this one definitely has a lot to it, and it's pretty fun. And apparently this version is a little more original than the Super Nintendo version because the SNES version is just a clone of a game called Fury of the Furries. Interesting. Okay, so I got that pretty backwards. I meant to say that the Super Nintendo version was more original and all the other versions are like that Fury of the Furries game. Alright, go ahead and leave the comments in the comment section. Anyway, clone or not, this is a pretty fun game right here. I'd say give it a try if you find it for a decent price. And I guess also give Fury of the Furries a try too, since it's basically the same game. Well, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed this type, and let me know if you want to see more of these. Maybe next time I'll have longer videos like that, or have more games to show. But in any case, I say in any case a lot. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like if you like this video, and do the subscribes if you want to see more of these. And again, thanks for watching. I repeat that for some reason. Here's the intro. The original PlayStation isn't this a beautiful picture up close? Anyway, the PlayStation 1 was released in Japan in 1994 and everywhere else in 1995, and it has a lot of games. Well, today I'm going to be looking at random ones, but not in random order because I've lost my mind and I'm reviewing a bunch of PS1 games, and I'll be doing the same for some future videos. For other consoles, I mean. Anyway, let's get started. Ape Escape. This is one of the few PS1 games that actually take full advantage of the DualShock controller. Not only that, it actually requires it. The controls do feel a little weird at first, but it's not something you can't get used to, and it can feel pretty satisfying. The main goal of the game is to catch escaped apes. Heh. Which sounds pretty simple at first, but you can get pretty creative with how you catch them. You can catch the monkeys in various ways using various gadgets, or you can just goof around like I did here. This isn't the longest game in the world, but it actually is pretty lengthy for a platformer like this. Now I know that some people are going to get turned off by this. There is backtracking. It's not the worst thing in the world though if you know what you're doing. Now if you want to take a break from the main adventure, or if you've been unlocking everything and you want more, then you got some mini games here that are actually pretty fun and have multiplayer. They're not the best thing in the world, but they're good for side content. Is this a perfect game? Nah. But what the heck even is a perfect game? but it is a pretty good one. Bugs Bunny Lost in Time. This game gives me a lot of Jersey Devil vibes. This game is kind of your basic 3D platformer. Not that that's a bad thing or anything like that, it's not really much that stands out about it. This is kind of a collectathon where you go through and collect carrots and clocks. I mean, Bugs Bunny is lost in time and it's Bugs Bunny. The controls of the game are, well, they're fine, they just could be better. And, it's not really that much for me to say about this game. You see some classic Looney Tunes characters and the voice acting's decent. You know, that's cool. From what I've played, the game is alright. I don't know if I'd highly recommend it or not, but I haven't played the whole thing, so I guess it might be up to you to decide that. Croc 2. I didn't have a recording of the original Croc, so we're going straight to Croc 2. Croc 2 definitely has a Banjo-Tooie vibe to it. Not necessarily in a good way. I like the idea of having levels in a hub world and stuff like that, but it gets really confusing on where to go, considering most of these levels are just missions, and there's not a clear way to go. Like, seriously, the only reason you're seeing a next hub world is because I use cheats. I mean, it's not like it's impossible to get through this, I could just be dumb and I just don't read where to go. And I mean, the controls are fine, in fact, a lot of this game is a big improvement over the first game, but I like the structure of the first game better, where it's a linear level design. And I mean, I have no problem with hub worlds and all that stuff. I just don't like the setup of this game. I just couldn't get into this game, as you can tell. Maybe you'll like it better, but for me personally, I'll just stick to Croc 1. Descent. Guess I wanted a headache. Of course, the idea is cool, the controls are okay, but this is just really headache inducing. This is like if Doom moved around in Xbox 360 degrees. At least from what I played, it feels like a maze with a 360 headache inducing... You get the idea. Apparently this was so popular it led to a couple of sequels, but I don't know if I'll be playing those. Maybe this could have worked out better as a VR game, but as it stands right now, I don't really like it that much. Duke Nukem Time to Kill. So instead of Doom or Quake, this time Duke Nukem is copying Tomb Raider. It's obviously not really a bad thing, it's just you might want to improve upon those controls while you're at it. This game has Duke going through different time periods, hence the name. I feel like this game had promise, it's just... It has that problem of not knowing where to go, similar to Croc 2. And like Croc 2, I used some cheats to kind of show off a little more of what this game has to offer. It's not a bad game, it just could have been better. It's a little boring in some areas, and it could have used some improvements. Gran Turismo. Oh man, that iconic music, it hits me right in the childhood. Got a lot of nostalgia for this game, or at least a demo of it. How's the game itself though? You know, the graphics are decent for the time. Let me go ahead and clarify. If you've played a realistic racer, this is no different. So if you really like realistic car racers, then you should like this game. But if you're a fan of like kart racers, you probably won't enjoy this one as much. Yeah, I myself am not a big fan of realistic racers, so that's probably why I'm crap at this game. It probably controls well if you know what you're doing. You just gotta know what you're doing. So, if you're a fan of classic realistic racers, I would say pick this one up. It's actually really cheap. Gran Turismo 2. I mean, the controls are a little improved, although a little bit too slippery. Other than having some improvements here and there and some more content, this really is kind of the same as the first. But there is one unique feature about this game that's different from the first game. That is the fact that this game has two discs. The one you're seeing right now is considered arcade mode. The other one is considered simulation mode. So what does it have? You know, most games would consider this career mode, but I guess they wanted to be a little more unique. While it does have a little more for whoever would like these kinds of games,
it still doesn't give me much to say that I would still recommend it to those who like kart racers and ones that don't drive like realistic vehicles. Jet Moto.
You know, I just don't think that we have enough racers here. We could use some more freaking racers.
So Jet Moto is basically racing on an all-terrain motorcycle that floats. From my experience, the controls are kind of sloppy or a little bit, you know, not as tight. And with games like this, sometimes it can get a little confusing on where exactly you're supposed to go. I mean, yeah, there's a map that shows you, but it's not exactly a highly detailed map. I'm cutting this game a little bit of slack for its age, but I still feel like it could have been a little bit better. A little more clear on where to go. Jet Moto 2. Well, there's some slightly improved graphics, and the controls are a little better. But I feel like they went a little too light on having the reduced racers. In fact, I'm the only one here. I don't understand. Oh wait, this is time trial, isn't it? At the end of the day though, this is primarily the same game, with some improvements here and there. So if you like the first game, you'll probably like this one a little bit better. But if you don't like the first game, this one's not really going to change your mind that much. Jet Moto 3. Alright. In terms of graphics, I'm seeing a lot of improvement here. The controls are a little improved, but I think I just need to accept the fact that the physics and stuff are probably on purpose. So from what all I've played out of these 3 games, this one is probably my favorite. There's just a lot of improvements here, but honestly I'm not the biggest fan of this series overall. But if I were to recommend any of these games to someone who hasn't played any of these games before, I would say go with the third one. Rocket Power Team Rocket Rescue. Have you ever heard the word jank before? Okay, it's not quite that janky, but it definitely could have used some improvements. This is one of those games that has multiple sports, but instead of being like Rushdown where there's only 3 and they're incredibly boring, this one has a little bit of entertainment to it, and there's more than 3 sports. Oh, and the reason for the name Team Rocket Rescue is because this has to do with like saving Raymundo's store and skating around and doing all these sports. Apparently have something to do with saving it. So if you enjoy this beautifully aged show, then you might get something out of this game. But there are definitely better choices out there. Road Trip Vacation 2012. Have you ever played Twisted Metal? Well, then you've probably played whatever it's called. I mean, don't get me wrong, that's not really a bad thing because it's copying a good game, but at the end of the day, it's copying a good game. But it does have something a little unique in the fact that you pick up tourists and, I don't remember what the hell they do, but they don't really change that much. So, I guess if you want something slightly different from Twisted Metal, but you still kind of want to play Twisted Metal, just don't have it be titled that, then play Road Trip Vacation 2012. But you're better off with Twisted Metal. Rugrats in Paris the Movie. Actually, this is a video game, but okay. Oh, is that how it's gonna be now? You know, I do have to say, this is a relatively quiet game. I mean, you expect some kind of excitement. Okay, I can't hear anymore. So this game is a minigame collection, and not a very good one. Even as a kid, I could tell just how janky yet boring this game was. This feels like it was trying to be the previous 2 PS1 Rugrats games, but had more of a licensed game feel to it. Not that Rugrats The Search for Reptar or Rugrats Studio Tour were masterpieces by any means, but they were a whole lot better than this garbage. So as you can tell, I would definitely not recommend this game, unless you're a hardcore Rugrats merch collector and you don't actually plan to play this. The Flintstones Bedrock Bowling. You know, I could be wrong here, but I don't think this is how they do it in the show. Basically, this game takes bowling and makes it very interestingly unique. And that's not a bad thing. This is actually a pretty fun game. It takes an idea like bowling and puts a very unique twist to it. And it's quite fun. The only real downside of this game, other than the aged graphics, are the sound effects. They repeat a lot and they can get kind of annoying that way.
I wouldn't really recommend this for actual bowling fans, but if you're a fan of the Flintstones and you like unique takes on existing sports games, then I would recommend this. Defender of the Crown. Wait a minute. The Three Stooges. How do I put this? I love the show. I hate this game. There, end of the review. If you thought they were going to improve from the old version that came out in 1987, well, you're funny. Nope, all they did was slightly improve the graphics and the sound, and that's about it. I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure all they actually did was take the Game Boy Advance version and blew it up for a PS1 game in 2003. So, like Rugrats in Paris, unless you're a collector of the franchise, I would say stay away from this game. Wild 9. Well, where do I start with this? This is a side-scroller, but it really feels like it should have been a fixed camera 3D game. Let me put it this way. The idea of this game is pretty cool, the way you move objects and the way you defeat enemies, but the execution is very rough. This game is really hard, and not because of clever level design. It's not a challenge, it's jank as hell. Just be sure you're taking notes of how many times I've used the word jank today. So yeah, I couldn't even get past the first level. That could be a mistake on my end, but I don't know, I just feel like this game is not going to be very good. I don't know, maybe it gets pretty amazing after the first level, but if I have a hard time and get really frustrated and lose all my lives on the first level, I feel like I probably shouldn't touch it again. And the last game on our list today, X-Men Mutant Academy. It's a fighting game with X-Men characters. I don't know how else to describe this. Also, I'm pretty sure my disc had a problem where it didn't want to play the music during gameplay, so that was a thing. Anyway, this is kind of a basic fighter. It's not really bad, it's just not all that great either. It just kind of feels generic. I don't think this is really based on the 2000 X-Men movie, but it was made to kind of promote that. I mean, you do get free tickets inside when you get it. Can't wait to see that movie in 2000. But while it does feel a bit generic, it could have been a lot worse. So if you're an X-Men fan and or a fighting game fan, then you might get something out of this game. Well, that's the end of this video. Like and subscribe for more of these, although this is kind of the start of the apocalypse of me reviewing games. So there won't be that many left, but if you want to subscribe for more than the rest of these, then sure, go ahead. And you can like the video if you like it. And, well, thanks for watching. Here's the intro. Ants Extreme Racing is a game that actually exists, 4 years after the film came out. The game was released on PS2, Xbox, PC, and Game Boy Advance. I'm not sure who exactly was asking for an Ants racing game in 2002 when the movie came out in 1998, but I suppose it's better than releasing a cartoon about 8 years after the movie came out. Good old classic Ants music, you know. Alright, so we'll start a new game with, I have a confession to make. I've never actually seen the entirety of the movie Ants. I've seen parts of it, but not enough to remember the characters' names. So forgive me if I forget the characters' names. But if I was paying attention, I would have noticed that their names are down here. Now let's just see what kind of racing game this is. Oh, it's on foot. I mean, okay, sure. I mean, we also have Sonic R and Rayman Arena, or Rayman M, and Rayman Rush. But, you know, I do have to say, though, the controls feel a little bit weird in a way. Probably something I can't really describe very well. But we'll just see how they work in an official okay, I guess it's not completely on foot. Also, why are bugs riding other bugs? I mean, I get that they're a lot bigger than the ants, but they're still bugs. You don't really see humans riding other humans under normal circumstances. I do kind of like this setup though, where it's tiny ants just racing around in places that we normally see as just normal looking places. To them it's huge. I don't know, something about the small world has always been fascinating to me. It's kind of a fetish. I don't really have that much to say about this game. I mean, it's just a weird little game based on a movie from a few years before it. The graphics are fine, but the sound effects are a bit weird, and I find it a little strange that none of the characters really talk. Maybe they just didn't have the big enough budget for this to even get some cheap knockoff voices. I will say though, the variety of ways you can actually race in this game is actually pretty big. In addition to foot racing and kind of kart racing, you've also got board racing, you got whatever this is that's kind of the same as kart racing, and you got flying, which is, you know, that's pretty interesting. That's just a lot for a little weird, randomly released game. While you have a big variety of ways you can race in this game, the same can't really be said that much about the levels. I mean, I wasn't expecting, you know, lava-filled castles or haunted houses, but I was expecting a little bit more than just grass and dirt. I mean, yeah, ants are mostly around there, but they also go in the houses, uninvited. The game is alright overall. Fans of ants and fans of racing games can both just kind of enjoy this for a little while, but it's not like an hours of fun type of game. So what's the GBA version like? Well, unlike the console version where there's a variety of ways to race, in this one it's just your typical kart racer. Your typical GBA kart racer. Which is not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I can see some people enjoying this game. It controls fine enough. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's kind of a little inoffensive game. One thing I definitely like about this version over the console version is the fact that the levels actually have more than just dirt and plants. Like, it looks like there's a lot more locations that were in the movie and some that weren't, and it's just got a lot of variety to it. I guess you could say that this being a typical GBA kart racer is the trade-off. The only real negative I have about this game is the fact that it can be a little too slidey and a little too bumpy. Like, you can bump into too many things and it can really set you back. So overall, and at the end of the day, and whatever else I say, this is fine. It's nowhere near perfect, but it's a fine game. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. I know in the previous video of mine like this, I said that it was the apocalypse and I was going to stop reviewing, but that's going to be a little bit longer now, because I decided to change things up. As you can see with this video, considering I didn't do a bunch of random other types of games. If you didn't see that video, none of this is going to make sense, so watch the other videos if you want to. Like and subscribe. You can subscribe for the rest of the types of videos I release. And I better go ahead and end this soon, so thanks for watching. Here's the intro. Ape Escape Pumped and Primed was a game released on the PS2 and is a spin-off of the Ape Escape series, as you can imagine. And no, what you're looking at is not a misprint or someone just having fun with paint. This game is actually T-rated. Is it because of that? That'd be stupid. Despite the rating and what the cover art might have you believe, this game is actually a party game. So we are allowed to have a Ape Escape party game with a T rating. But a Sonic game going slightly edgier than E10 is just out of the question. I wish I understood the logic, the stupidity of people. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Let's get to the review.
Game looks okay. End of the review. They made it look really fun, but let's see what the actual game is like. Which, I mean, that was the actual game, but you know what I'm saying. Well, there's an opening cutscene, but I'll let you watch that on your own time. I'll just go ahead and say that the voice acting is passable, I guess.
Oh, wow, this is great!
I won't go into too much detail, but there's actually quite a bit of options here. I just wanted to point that out. Well, if you're familiar with the Tom and Jerry fighting games like War of the Whiskers or Fists of Furry, then you should be familiar with this. The only differences are you get to choose what kind of weapon you use, and well, the controls are a lot more Ape Escape-ish if you're familiar with that, but otherwise it's very similar. Out of all the mini-games in this game, this is definitely one of the better ones. This one has you collecting a bunch of coins, or whatever those are supposed to be, and whoever has the most by the end is the winner, obviously. To make this short, this is basically a party game version of the second race in the original Ape Escape, with additional features such as collectibles and combat. So if you hate underwater controls in most video games, well, this isn't going to change your mind. Yeah, this is one of my least favorite mini-games. The controls are, well, you know, probably what you'd expect, if not worse. Not really much to say about this one, it's just a mix between the regular combat minigame and the collecting coin minigame. So, you know, that's cool. Now the slingshot, or just projectile weapon minigame, sounds cool, but the controls, they could be better, but they're not the worst thing. You know, there's a couple of things I'm noticing about these minigames, and both of them have to do with the fact that this is an Ape Escape game. For one thing, a lot of the minigames center around the different gadgets you use in the other Ape Escape games, and the other thing is, well, like I keep saying, the controls. Which, I mean, duh, this is an Ape Escape game, so you're gonna expect that, but it doesn't feel as accessible to everybody. Like, it kind of feels like only Ape Escape fans could enjoy this, and even then, that's a bit of a stretch there. When it comes to multiplayer-focused games, especially party ones, they need to be a little more accessible to as many people as they can. I understand that there are those games out there where the controls are purposely convoluted, but that's the fun of those, watching hilariously as people try to control those. This one, it doesn't feel like that's where the fun is supposed to come in at. I know this wouldn't have made it stand out as much if they had stuck with more traditional controls, but I feel like it would have been a little better off doing that. But at least this game does have something for people who play by themselves. This is in the form of story mode, which is basically a glorified tournament mode with cutscenes and bosses. There is a little more to talk about, but I just wanted to cover mostly the basic stuff. And overall, I would say this game is not for everybody, but if you can handle the controls, you might get something out of this. Hope you enjoyed this video, ladies and gentlemen. I think this is kind of a PS2 marathon for me, but I'm not going to call it that. If you want to see part 1 of it, I say that in quotes, then you look at Ant's Extreme Racing. But anyway, like this video if you like it, subscribe if you want to see more of these, and thanks for watching.